Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Gran Turismo 7. It is that time of the week once again for the weekly challenges to go ahead and refresh. Apologies, it's been a few weeks since I've done one of these, but I am back to making these videos weekly. In terms of this week, well, we do have a chance to bag ourselves a free car reward. So let's head over to an overview then for April week number 4, which will end on the 1st of May 2025 at midnight. As for the rewards, one event is a parts ticket, 3 events is 150k, and all 5 will net you that free car ticket. Now in terms of the events though, we head to Tokyo Expressway on the central clockwise layout for the Japanese FR Challenge 450. We then have the returning special event with the Renault Kangoo 1 make at Brands Hatch GP, before moving over to Alsace Village for the World Rally Challenge. After that, it's over to Germany and the Nürburgring GP for the WTC 600, and then to finish off, it's over to America and Daytona Road Course for the Gr.1 Prototype series. And with that, it's an overview of April week 4. So let's get straight into it with the first event of the week then. Tokyo Expressway central clockwise for the Japanese FR Challenge 450. Of course, aimed at some of the game's slower vehicles at 450 pp, but must be an FR drivetrain layout. So there's a bunch of different possibilities here. However, you will mainly see a lot of different kind of Silvias and Nissans. My car of choice would be the Toyota 86 Limited Edition. So let's go ahead and get into the event. Now, honestly, it's not a difficult one. There's only 8 cars in total, 7 AI, over a 2-lap sprint. However, there is one specific car that you may need to watch to actually spawn in, and that is going to be the Silvia K's Aero. Now, again, I run all of these events on the hardest difficulty, and I'll stick as close as possible to any PP recommendation, even if it's not a limited event, which this one isn't. However, that Silvia K's is just slightly over 450 pp and is incredibly quick in comparison to the rest of the field. So if you get that one spawn in and you're like me, trying to be as, I guess, fair to the AI as possible, then you may be in for a pretty tough battle ahead of you. As you can see, this Silvia worked its way through the field in absolutely no time, and unfortunately I just couldn't quite chase it down in time. As we got to the final corner, the gap would then grow from half a second onwards, so a P2 in the end for the first event of the week. But we still get the tick, which means we still get the reward. We take away 9,000 credits in terms of the credit value for this event, and of course we do get that parts ticket. So the second event of the week is the special event for this week. It's the return of the Renault Kangoo 1 make, this time over at Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. Previous, when this car first launched, or van should I say, it was over at Tsukuba, so I'm using the exact same build I did there, fully built for acceleration. As for the finer details, it's a 3-lap sprint with 8 vehicles total. Of course, specified car is the Kangoo. It's 50k, 30k and 20k in terms of rewards. Main rivals are of course going to be a bunch of different modified Kangoos. Car restrictions, BOP is off, it must be a garage car and settings are allowed. No mechanical damage and no penalties for both shortcut and wall collision. So of course here I'm using a modified Kangoo. Again, this is the one that I used at Tsukuba, so it's fully built up for acceleration, which was kind of unfortunate on some of the longer straights here, but I was able to keep up, and through the corners, well, I was absolutely uncatchable by the AI. So 8 cars total, 3 laps up ahead of us. Let's see how we got on. Our first move came just a few corners into the race, and in fact the majority of our moves will be done on that first opening lap. For some reason, the AI this time around in the Kangoo seemed much more nerfed in comparison to what we saw at Tsukuba, so none of them were really putting up much of a fight. So during the latter stages of lap 1, we would actually get ourselves into a podium position, which means we're pretty much guaranteed the tick for the week no matter what. And in fact, as we went on to lap 2, we were drag racing down the main start finish straight with our higher acceleration and better downforce. We'd go around the outside of 2 Kangoos and get ourselves into the lead, one getting a little bit out of shape there and causing us to go onto the gravel, but we did manage to survive. After that, well, it was just time to cruise on to victory as we completed the 3 laps with a fastest lap in the 1:49s. That was the second tick of the week. In terms of the payout, it is better this time around, 75,000 credits with that clean race bonus. So moving on to event number 3 for the week then. This is Alsace Village with the World Rally Challenge. Unfortunately, this is a day 1 Gran Turismo 7 event, so it does feature some of the more inherent flaws from the release of the game, and I'll explain those as we go through. Overall though, it is a limited PP race, of course mainly aimed at World Rally cars. However, it isn't specifically limited to them. I chose the Honda NSX Group B for this one though, so let's get into it then. So there's a total of 12 AI opponents for this one over a 3-lap sprint race. So really, it's a quite quick and over and done with event, and it may just be one of the most visually stunning events in the entire game. But there's a huge flaw with it. Again, because this is a day one Gran Turismo 7 event, it does feature a lot of the really big flaws from the game's release, and that is just mainly the sheer amount of gap between car to car. Every now and again you might come across a group of 2 vehicles at most, but that's very, very rare. Most of the time you're overtaking one car to the next, to the next, to the next. It almost feels like you're playing kind of Outrun, but in a modern day game. It really kind of doesn't work for a track racing game, and unfortunately that is just the way this event is set up. However, if you are a VR player, you're probably going to really enjoy this one. The fireworks at night last off on that final lap is absolutely incredible to look at. Anyway, it really isn't the most difficult event, just choose an incredibly quick car and you should get this one no problem. So that is our 3rd tick of the week. So we of course do get another reward. We're going to get 60,000 credits for completing it, so unfortunately very, very low paying. Again, another GT7 day 1 issue, but in terms of the reward, of course we are going to get topped up with 150k. So moving on to the 4th event of the week, this is the WTC at Nürburgring GP. Again, another PP limited event here, of course limited to 600 PP, and this one can be quite tricky, just like a lot of the other 600 events, because again, Polyphony like to change around the PP ratings and such update from update, so some of the better cars might not work. I went for a completely stock Lexus LFA for that incredible screaming sound. Now let's get into the event then. It's a 5-lap sprint race, so it isn't one of the longer ones, made up of a total of 16 cars, of course 15 AI. Now again, this is another early GT7 event, so unfortunately there's a lot of gaps here, and that means the leader will have an astonishing lead over the rest of the field. So you're probably just going to be picking them off one by one. As you can see, even here at the start of lap 1, the leader had around about 30 plus seconds on me, so unfortunately that is a long way to go and a long way to get through the grid. So again, we're just going to pick them off one by one. On lap 2 we came across our biggest grouping, and thankfully the AI are incredibly slow through that right-hander, so that allowed us to pick off a bunch of cars there and move ourselves into a top 5 position. On lap 4 we would eventually get ourselves in a podium position, again just battling here with the Honda NSX. So at this point we do have our tick for this event confirmed. Next up would be the Alfa Romeo 4C, which really wouldn't take much doing. For some reason this was the lead car and eventually it would be chased down by the Lamborghini, which is certainly the fastest car that can actually, I guess, spawn into this event. Overall that thing would push out a huge lead, already having 8 seconds over us, which meant on the final lap, desperate times calls for desperate measures, and we just decided to jump it and get ourselves into the lead that way. Yes, it's a bit of cheating, but really who cares? And there we go, that is our 4th tick of the week. Of course we don't get anything extra on top of this, but we do get paid out 80,000 credits. Again, unfortunately, because it's an early GT7 event, the payouts are pretty much terrible. However, we do get our daily driving marathon, which was unfortunately a freestyle. Moving on to the 5th and final event of the week. This is Daytona Road Course for the Gr.1 Prototype series, and I would say this is naturally the hardest event of the bunch and may even be one of the more tricky events in game, just because of how the Gr.1 cars work. It's incredibly unbalanced and there's huge gaps between the entirety of the field. Now in terms of my car of choice, I went for the 2019 Toyota Super Formula, which I can feel will get the job done quite easy here. Now my main advantage is on that infield section, where I can make up a lot of time over the Group 1s. Unfortunately, I forgot to adjust the downforce to allow myself to have a decent amount of top speed, so really kind of jokes on me. I've kind of got egg on my face for that one, but we do have the overtake button, which does allow us a little boost of acceleration if we really need it. So my main strategy was a fuel mix free, and then I would run this for pretty much the entirety of the first stint, getting ourselves as far as possible into the race before boxing in, going onto the softs and going absolute full out attack until the end of the event. Now again, if I need to, I'm going to use Slipstream here. I suggest you guys do too as well, because the AI will just kind of pull you along and then you can get those overtakes done easier. So end of lap 6 going on to lap 7, I would box in for my one and only pit stop. Again, a lot of the faster AI will pit in at this point. I'm going to swap from the medium compound onto the soft. Unfortunately, they would get a decent amount of wear around the last lap, but apart from that, they would work absolutely fine to really push us through the rest of the grid. Now, one thing I am going to mention here is that I don't have much faith in the little notch on the fuel bar. The main reason for that is because many of times I've filled up to the little notch and then found myself out of fuel on the final lap. So I'm actually going to take maximum fuel here, again adding a few extra seconds to the pit stop, but we know we're not really going to be able to tackle for the lead just due to the unfortunate circumstances that we haven't put the lower downforce on for the increased top speed. We're then going to work our way through the grid, fuel mix 1 for the rest of the event on the softs, pushing as hard as we possibly can, making positions up from pit stops, and of course on track we would eventually get ourselves into P3, and unfortunately the lead was far too great from the Nissan and the Peugeot ahead. So in the end we do get our third and final tick of the week, and that completes the full set. Unfortunately, we only take away 46,000 credits for third position there, which is absolutely terrible, but of course we do get our free car reward on top. So it's time to open up our rewards then. Now of course, first we do have our parts ticket. Typically this is a terrible reward because it will give you a pretty decent part for a car that you'll probably never ever use. So let's see what we get with this one. And as you can see, we do end up with the camshafts, and in terms of those camshafts, it's going to be for a Toyota. Next up we do have 150,000 credits, which isn't too bad, it's nothing too special there, but it does add to our bank balance. And of course the best reward of the bunch, which is the free car reward. So let's go ahead, open this up and see exactly what we're going to get. Now in terms of the roulette wheel here, as you can see, there's the likes of Super Formulas, one of the old F1 cars. We do have the new Porsche in there, and we're actually going to end up with the Bugatti VGT. Honestly, no complaints, it's one of the better ones, and this is the Group 1 variant. Anyway, with that is the new set of weekly challenges done and dusted. A massive thank you to all of my channel members listed on screen now, and a huge thank you to you guys watching at home. I'll see you in the next one. Take care guys, peace.